Wow, Leeson, you really do those well.
Thanks, Steven. Appreciate it. Lots of practice.
Can you fill me in? How do you get such great contact out of the bunker? What's your secret?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things that I learned at a young age that are very important to bunker shots. First and foremost, we want to make sure, especially for amateurs, most important thing that I found is we're always consistently using one club. So I personally use my 60 degree just because I like the extra loft that it gives me. I like the extra height, the extra spin, all those little things. I'm also very comfortable with it. I've used about the 60 degree almost my entire life out of the bunker. So that's the first thing I would recommend, is always find a club that you feel the most comfortable with. That way you can get your distances down. You can just get a little bit more comfortable and consistent with that one club.
What about that flush contact that you were making, where you were almost taking like a little bit of sand underneath the ball? Did it just really?
Yeah. So one common thing that kind of gets misunderstood with amateurs is the understanding of a bunker shot. So in a bunker shot, we actually don't make any contact with the ball itself. It is the sand that we're hitting a couple inches behind that actually raises the ball, lifts everything. That uses the bounce of the club. Each wedge will clarify the bounce, has a number on it. The higher the number, the more bounce. The lower the number, the less bounce on that club. I like to use my 60 because it's kind of got a middle range of bounce. So that way I can kind of use the perfect in between of the bounce and the leading edge to get underneath that golf ball.
So what about your technique? What do you do technically different when you're in the bunker than like when you're just pitching a shot?
So when I set up for my bunker shot, there's a couple things that I need to do first to make sure that I'm set up for the right shot. So the first and most important is I'm going to open the club face. Opening the club face is going to expose the bounce on the club, and it's going to easily let me glide under that sand. Now, if I were to use the leading edge of the club, like we do maybe sometimes on a chip, a greenside chip, or a bump and run, it's going to be much more difficult to get through this sand. As you can see, it's just kind of stabbing the sand. So first thing is we want to open our club face. Everybody's different. Some people are more comfortable opening up completely. Some people are less comfortable doing that. So find a certain amount of loft that you like on that club. I'm going to open my feet. As you can see, I'm way open, so I've got a way open stance here. Lots of room to swing underneath this golf ball. And then last, but one of the most important parts to a bunker shot is we're not actually swinging and making contact on the back of the golf ball like every other shot. So my goal, and the goal that I teach everybody, is when you're practicing, this is great, mark a line about, let's say, an inch or two behind the golf ball. That is where you actually want your club to enter the sand. Now, if we get too far behind that, we're just gonna chunk it. If we get too far ahead of that, we're gonna hit it thin, and it's gonna go a mile, right where we don't want it to go. So my goal here is I'm gonna hit that line, which is gonna scoop the golf ball up and push it towards my target.
Oh, that's great. Now, is there an option for somebody who's maybe not as good at opening up the face and maybe doesn't want to risk blading it? Is there an option for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said earlier, not everybody can open up that face as far. Some people are more comfortable with it. Some people are less comfortable with the shot like that because it just requires a little bit different skills, a little more comfortability to hit that shot. So for someone who, say, maybe can't quite get into this big of a stance or can't really open up the way that maybe some others can, is just have it a little bit more flush. So set up to it like a normal shot. Still try to open that club face maybe a degree or two just to expose a little bit more of that bounce, as the bounce is our best friend when we're hitting bunker shots. So just set up a little bit more square. I'm gonna set up a little square, little bit open club face. As you can see, this is not nearly as wide of a stance, so it's a little bit easier to get into. I'm gonna hit a little bit closer to the golf ball on this one too, just because I don't have as big of a swing as much momentum going underneath that golf ball,
But you're still hitting into the sand.
but I'm still hitting into the sand. Great example, Steven.
Is there anything I need to know about the ball position for this particular variation?
Yes, great question as well, Steven. So in my first shot, the one where, say, a player opens up a lot, we're gonna have the ball quite a bit further in our stance. That's gonna allow us, to enter that sand at the point that we're trying to. Now, for the second example, for someone who can't quite get into as big of a stance, we're gonna have the ball still up, but not quite as much as the other person's stance. The reason being is, once again, that big swing. The bigger the stance, the easier it is to kind of swing underneath that golf ball. So I'm still gonna have this ball up in my stance more than a normal wedge would be, but not quite as much as if I had this crazy big open stance. So here would be an example of that second swing. As you can see, I'm a lot more square here, kind of like more of a normal setup. Now this is gonna result in a little bit more of a chunk and run type shot. As you can see there. And that's gonna run out.
Still quite effective though.
Yeah, still very effective, especially when you have a target that you have quite a bit of green to work with.
Wow, thank you for all that input.
Absolutely. Hope you guys have a great week on the golf course, and let us know if you have any questions.
See you next time.